I'm going to do you a favor.
Okay.
Green bean casserole seltzer is a thing. That's right, Kirby. That's right.
Absolutely not.
Hello, Kirby. I invite you to carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done listening to episode number 124 of the Promo Upfront podcast. I am one of your hosts, Bill Petrie. With me, as always, let's call him the Imagineer of the Internet, the one and only Kirby Hasseman. Kirby, we've had a little bit of a recording snafu this morning, haven't we?
We have, because usually you ask me how I'm doing, and you're too smart to do that because I'll start cursing. We started this at one point, and Spectrum came in to fix things. And so they shut off the internet midway through. So it's one of those things where when something gets fixed, 7 other things get broken. So that's my morning. But I ran home. You were kind enough to be patient, and so I appreciate that, man. How are you?
No, I appreciate you getting getting this done, and because you're heading out to Colorado. I know you're excited about that. You've got some exciting things on the rise, visiting your daughter out there in Colorado. And I know when someone just arbitrarily shuts off your internet,
kind of a thing.
That tends to exacerbate things that are difficult, and that's the last thing we need. So, got me to thinking as you were running home, Kirby.
Yeah.
How important is it to work with suppliers that really try to make things easier for their distributor partners?
Yes, it is. On days like today, it's even more important than ever.
Well, you and every other distributor who's listening to this platinum level podcast is in luck, because our promo paths at Shepenco are working diligently to make things easier than ever to work with them. And they've launched a brand new updated website. They have made it easier than ever to use their virtual tool. We know how important that is, making things easier. They've added accurate shipping estimator to take the guesswork out of delivery dates, and that makes things a lot easier as we're trying to make sure we get deliveries on time, especially this time of year. And they've also increased the transparency with their inventory tracker, and that makes it easier to know what merchandise is in stock. Kirby, did you catch a theme there? I bet you did. Don't you feel the stress just rolling off your back? Screw Spectrum. Screw them. Let's talk about Shepenco, because they're making life so much easier for you, and I know you love that.
I do. And, at the end of the day, we were actually at one of the topics at Promotions East, that those folks who, those suppliers that provide that transparency, as you said, with inventory, it really does provide some peace of mind. I know no tool is perfect, but man, it does at least allow us as distributors to start from the foundation of saying, okay, they at least are in stock today. We can start with that. And the idea that, the website is new. Shepenco always does a great job and really handles their business. So I appreciate that.
Kirby, you said it perfectly. And if that weren't good enough, and gosh darn it, I think we all know it is. When you put the code Shepenco22 on your next order, Shepenco is going to hook you up with some free goods or free ground shipping. Or you can just simply email Alex, our good friend Alex Moltz, directly at alex@shepenco.com, and he's going to hook you up with some random samples and the aforementioned free goods. See all their amazing products. Go ahead and visit the brand spanking new Shepenco.com. You're not going to be sorry you did. Now, Kirby, hold on. Do you smell that? It smells like potential. That's what that smells like. This podcast smells like potential. And you're going to kick us off. You're going to light the proverbial candle that you do every week. You're going to get us rolling with a topic, and hopefully the internet will remain stable.
Let's give it a run. Yeah. So many of us have seen that ASI has started. They've begun to roll out their Power 50. My guess is once the entire list, as we're recording this, we talked about transparency. In transparency, it's Wednesday, so it's a little bit earlier in the week. And what they did is they did the first 10, I believe, from 50 to 40. And then this morning, I think I saw from 40 to 30. My guess is
Monday was 50 to 40, Tuesday was 40 to 30, and then today we haven't seen it yet. It just hadn't been released.
Okay, cool. So I'm sure we're going to talk about all the people on the list at some point, but I actually wanted to quickly just chat about how they're doing it.
Mhm.
I love these lists. You and I've talked about that ad nauseum. I think these are super interesting. I think I get to know about people in the industry through them. Um, but I will say that, with 50 on the list, it's like you kind of scroll through and kind of look for familiar faces.
Mhm.
I love the way they're rolling this out. I think this is really interesting. And I think what it does for me is it makes me have time to like look at number 50 to number 40 or whatever it is, and just like literally look at them and study them and comment on them and kind of celebrate them. And so I thought this was a really neat way of doing it. I wanted to know what you thought.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you. I think it's a great way to do it, and obviously, the folks over in the newsroom at ASI are paying attention to how things are evolving in terms of distributing media. Which, I mean, that shouldn't surprise anyone, knowing Michelle Bell and Chris Ruvo and all those folks. I love how they're doing it. What it does exactly what you said. It allows us as the consumer of the content to really get to know in stacks of 10. We
Mhm.
get to know these people, and some we know, and some are good friends, and some we don't know. So it gives us that opportunity. And like I said, I'm sure we'll dive into it probably next week or the week after. But I think what it also does from a content provider perspective, it allows you to stretch it out a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
when it's all dumped out there, I mean, the amount of work that goes into a list like that, a Power 50 list, is I can't imagine what it would be. It's
Yeah,
immense. There's a lot of, who's up, who's down, and it's a lot of
yeah.
opinions. I think they all get in a room. And if Tim Andrews isn't on that list, we're going to have a problem with the list again, just to let everybody know. Um, but
Yes, we are.
what it does, it stretches it out, and I think that's a good thing because it allows. We talk about consumable and how important it is
Yeah.
for content to be consumable. Now that can be a negative in terms of just like catchphrases and things like that, but also can be a positive where, again, the benefit here for the content consumer is that, hey, I get to just see 10 of them. Okay, I can move on with my day. I don't have to sit and study a whole list at one time. And then from the content provider's perspective, it stretches it out. So it keeps ASI in the forefront for the entire week. So I love how they're distributing it. So I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to seeing the remainder of the list.
yeah, me too. And I would also say from a lesson perspective. So I am,
Yeah.
whenever I get like a list like this would be one that they were excited about doing, I would assume, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
anytime that I have a content, a course, something
Mhm.
that I'm really, really excited about, I am like a kid on Christmas morning. I cannot wait to release it.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lesson here for me to be like, okay, be patient. Like
Yep.
roll it out a little bit at a time, or pump the brakes on another week. I am terrible at that because I want to get it out so bad that I see what they're doing and I'm like, oh, it kind of plays to both, right? It's like you get to get the list out pretty quickly, but then
Yeah.
you draw it out as you said. So it's
Yep.
just an interesting lesson for me. I thought it was really cool.
As my one of my favorite cookbook authors and chefs, Alton Brown, might say, your patience will be rewarded. All right, Kirby. You know what? If there is ever a time to amp up your sales, man, it's right freaking now, right?
Yes.
I got some good news for you, pal. The first 100 signups for Promo Pulse, that's right, a little blurb here for Promo Pulse. The first 100 signups will get full access to the AMP platform for
Yep.
the rest of 2022, as well as free onboarding. Promo Pulse is going to do all the setup for you. No credit card, don't need any hand over any money. There's no trinkets, there's nothing. There's no obligation here. As of this recording, there are still a few spots left, so you might miss out if you don't act right now. So head over to promopulse.io/free to sign up. And you know that great, awesome AMP platform. You set it, you forget it in 5 minutes, and it's really a cool thing. So it's all automated, good stuff there. All right, Kirby. So this seems to be the ASI podcast of record because I've got an ASI. Speaking of ASI, I've already mentioned his name once, Chris Ruvo, a couple weeks ago. They put out a great article called Fixing Promo's Brand Fill Problem.
Okay.
Okay. It was an interesting perspective because I think we hear more and more about sustainability. A lot of people pushing back on the use of plastics and things like that tend to end up in and cheap, for lack of a better term, cheap promo that's not effective that ends up in a landfill. Hence the term brand fill. The first person I ever heard use it was Danny Rosen. I don't know if he coined it or not, but I'm going to give him credit because he's a friend of the program. So
Yep.
Chris said there were 5 things that distributors should and suppliers, so we had both sides here, should seek to do. Provide solutions, not stuff. Number 2, make sustainability and social responsibility central to your business. Brand Fuel is an incredible example of that. Make and sell higher quality products. Present with lifestyle and function in mind. And the 5th one is be an industry advocate in your communities. Now, I love the tone and tenor of it. A lot of these seem a little obvious, but that's okay. Just because they're obvious doesn't mean they're not important or accurate. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. So I wanted to get your take on your thoughts. If you're not doing the things that Chris Ruvo said, at least in my opinion, you're already behind the 8 ball. If you're providing stuff and not solutions, you're behind the 8 ball. If you're not being an industry advocate in your community, practicing what you preach, you're behind the 8 ball. So wanted to get your thoughts on that. And then I might have some additions here at the end.
Yeah. So, I think it's interesting. We were out at Promotions East, you and I actually mentioned this on the podcast when we did a live out there. I was fascinated by the end user group that Dale Denham interviewed several really cool end users that were big buyers of branded merch. And he asked about sustainability, and he said that one of his, is this a determining factor in what you buy? Yeah. And I was fascinated by the answers that it wasn't a leading determining factor. And I don't mean that to poo-poo the idea that it's important, but I think it colors my next 2 points that I was going to make. Yep. And I think, so from my perspective, I think that so yes, of course, we shouldn't just sell stuff. We should sell solutions. Love that. I'm not minimizing Chris's list, so please don't take it that way.
No, neither one of us are. Yeah. I just think, go ahead.
Yeah. So mine are, and they're kind of sort of the same coin, 2 sides of the same coin. So the first one is just to start to offer sustainable options, because I think the one of the challenges that is like, what's a baby step? And I've had this conversation with Danny and Denise Taschereau and some amazing people who do this really well. I'm not sure I do. So I think for the rest of us, one of the ways is to make it approachable. And I think for me, a baby step is to say, okay, cool, you've done this writing instrument, or you want this piece of apparel. Well, then I'm going to also provide you with one that is a sustainable piece. It's here's the one you said you wanted. Here's another option that would be, and here's the price difference. Here's the advantages, whatever. Just give them additional options.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in real quick. It might be sustainable. It might just be more effective. Sometimes brand fill isn't just because it's not sustainable. It's just it's a promo that doesn't fit the messaging for the client, and so therefore it's ineffective.
Yeah. And then the second thing, and like I say, it was 2 sides of the same coin, is just to have the conversation. I think, again, in the course of the day, and back to that end user conversation, they were like, we're not anti doing the sustainable thing, but it has to do with our budget, of course. But I think part of it is that that's not what they're thinking about in that moment, unless they're an organization that's what they're all about.
Okay? It's a core value.
Yeah. And so I think if you just bring up the conversations like, this is something that we're focused on, then they can go, oh, okay, yeah, bring me the options, and then I'll weigh it out with a business decision. And so those are 2 things that I would say that we can do, that I can do better.
I love it. And again, we're not denigrating Chris's list. Chris's list is, like I said, just because it's obvious to us may not be obvious to everybody else. Okay. Yeah. So I want to make sure we're really clear on that. One of the things we don't do well as an industry is listen to our clients. In fact, I'm going to back that up. We don't do a very good job of asking the end users questions and then actually listening to the answers, because I think sometimes we're scared of the answers and we might not even know the questions to ask. So I'd like to see us do a better job at that. The way I looked at it was a slightly differently. I looked at it more from the ineffective perspective. Okay. Sometimes clients just order the same thing over and over again, and because it's not easy. Their focus. Buying promotional products, it's easy. We get this pen every year for this trade show. So the first one I had was learn to say no. Learn to say no. Your client's not always right. They should always come first, but they're not always right. And you've heard me say that a dozen times, a dozen different ways. Learn to say no, because a lot of times those brand fill items are last minute purchases, and they're done without thought. They're done without any foresight, any thought of strategy, anything like that. Number 2, try to force your clients to plan ahead, because that'll avoid those last minute purchases. Now, I know that's a big ask, and it's real easy for me to sit here on a podcast and say, well, just plan ahead. I know it's not simple, but you got to make the effort. And number 3, and I think it's the most important one, stop selling product distributors, stop selling the product. Start selling the purpose behind the product. We've heard Bobby Leahy talk about that from commonsku before. Distributor, your job is to sell purpose. The supplier's job is to sell product. They are sell you products so you can in turn sell the purpose of that product as a marketing vehicle and hopefully an effective one to your clients. When you start doing that, and then you can take the sustainability route too, if that's a core value of your client, and maybe it's something they want to be better at, but they just don't even know it. You have that entire avenue when you start focusing on purpose, not just, hey, I've got this light or this pen with a blinky light and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this and again, I think it does overlap with Chris's point about selling solutions, and I think that
100%.
What it does is it reminds me, of my favorite quote. You've heard me say that a dozen times. Is the greatest distance in the world is the distance between I know and I do.
Yeah.
I think so many times we'll read these lists or we'll read these articles or we'll listen to videos and we'll say, yeah, I know that. Yeah. But we're not doing them, not
but
consistently.
You don't do it, right.
Yeah. And so 100%. I think that lists like that are really good to spur us to think. And as long as we do it with an open mind, we'll get something out of it.
And I'll tell you, the article is super well written. And like I said, some of these things are like, well, yeah, no duh, but that's okay. So you have to hit people over the head a dozen times. And I loved the title, Fixing Promo's Brand Fill Problem. So kudos to Chris Ruvo and the folks at ASI. All right, Kirby, got another topic for us?
Yeah, so I guess the question is, would you advertise Brandivate in space? So there's an article that Dustin in my office sent me, and because I'm operating in a different space, I'm not able to see your reaction, which is such a shame. But essentially, space advertising is soon to become a thing. So they said that while it may seem unrealistic, we show that space advertising based on 50 or more small satellites flying information could be economically viable. Okay. So I thought this was really funny because obviously this is probably not something that is a Brandivate play, but for those bigger advertisers, the Pepsis and the Nikes and those sort of things, there is actual conversation around space advertising. And so this seemed like just a funny topic and I wanted to get your take on it. So I want to just ask you, what do you think? Is space advertising the next frontier?
I know, I'm sure it is, but I want to know who I'm advertising to. Are there people living in space that I'm not aware of? Does this advertising beam back down to Earth? So there's a lot of questions I have more than opinions.
Yeah.
I mean, I think anytime there's a new frontier, this is a new frontier, just like streaming was a new frontier, YouTube was a new frontier, television was a new frontier, radio was a new frontier. Anytime there's a new frontier and a way to get in front of people, I think anybody should explore that. I think you'd be foolish not to. But as far as Brandivate, I don't think we have the budget for satellite advertising at this point in time, but I'd appreciate your consideration.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was a funny topic. I think, how would you do it? There's, talk of potentially literally billboards up in the sky. And so again, I think any new technology sounds hilarious when it's so new and impossible. But do I think it's the next frontier? In answer to my own question, absolutely not. I do not think it's the next frontier. I think the next frontier is more meta. It's more, sort of living in that world. But I just thought it was really funny that is something that's being explored.
Yeah. It's worth dabbling in because you never know. It could be the next thing. No one is perfect at predicting these things. All right, Kirby. Your favorite holiday is coming up, and then we're going to do our quick football picks. Your favorite holiday is coming up. I know how much you love Thanksgiving for a couple of reasons. One, you are wonderful at expressing gratitude to people, and so you love the idea of Thanksgiving and what it means and how you can leverage that to really tell people how you feel about them. I know that's important to you. But number two, man, you love that meal. That is your favorite meal. That is your Super Bowl of meals. So, and a lot of times, I'm sure during Thanksgiving, you get thirsty, right? You get thirsty. You might have a beer or something like that. Well, I'm going to do you a favor.
Okay.
Green bean casserole seltzer is a thing. That's right, Kirby. That's right.
Absolutely not.
Well, hear me out, please. I heard your whole SpaceX advertising thing,
fair.
So hear me out.
That's fair.
Ora Bora, the company Ora Bora has turned Thanksgiving upside down with its new green bean casserole sparkling seltzer. That's right. It's described as having a sweet, earthy and buttery flavor, and tasting like a bite out of a perfectly crunchy, succulent green bean. It was inspired by Ouroboros superfans who love daring and unassuming sparkling water flavors. The company claims our green bean casserole is better than your mom's.
Okay.
So I think I already know the answer to this question. It's not a hard seltzer, it's just a regular seltzer.
Yeah.
So would you try Ouroboros green bean casserole at Thanksgiving dinner?
So you know how you said at the end of the SpaceX thing, you're like, I have many questions. I have a couple
Yeah.
questions.
Okay.
And you may not be fair, but
I'm not a
is
representative of Ouroboros, so I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
and I guess is there any health, like is it a healthy drink or is it just a flavored seltzer?
I'm
If you,
pretty sure it's just a flavored seltzer. I think it's a trick to have, it's a marketing gimmick to have yuck monkeys like us talk about it.
okay.
Congratulations, Ouroboros, you
Yeah,
win.
you win. So would I try it? Sure.
Okay.
I am one of the things that I've learned is, especially as an adult, I was terrible at this as a child. I wouldn't try things at all. As an adult, I'll try most anything,
Yeah.
just to see, because I found that things that I thought I would hate, every once in a
Yeah.
while, I'm like, oh, I actually really like that. So would I try it? Sure. Am I going to run out and buy a case of it? Probably not.
Okay. So I thought about this. Brock's, the candy maker, they make candy corn. They put out a couple years ago Thanksgiving dinner candy corns. So they had each different one was a different flavor, and there was a stuffing flavor, there was a roasted turkey flavor, there was a green bean casserole flavor. So it got me to thinking, Kirby. Here's ones I'd actually try, some mashups. I want to get your opinion when you try these at Thanksgiving dinner.
Okay.
Roasted turkey infused hummus. I don't think that sounds bad.
I mean, I think so. If would I try it? I mean, I guess
Yeah.
my problem
Okay.
is trying anything on Thanksgiving means that there's just one bite less of room for mashed potatoes and noodles. So with the idea that
Hey,
that would be a struggle for me.
Hey, we're reinventing Thanksgiving here. Roll with me.
Okay, got it.
All right, stuffing flavored pita chips for dipping into said hummus.
That's a no for me. I don't like stuffing. So yeah.
Okay, cranberry sauce, vodka, and cranberry from High Noon. So that would be great for family gatherings, especially when you talk about the political landscape of our country.
Yeah, I'm totally down for trying that. Totally
Okay,
down.
garlic mashed potato flavored ruffles.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds
See?
kind of interesting. Yeah,
Right.
I'm in for that.
Candied yam ice cream from Bluebell. Has to be Bluebell ice cream.
Okay. No, thank you.
Okay. You don't play this game very well. And here's another game you don't. Here's another game you generally don't play very well, although you did last week. Gambling for good for our good friends at PPEF. Kirby, last week you went 4-2.
Mhm.
I went 3-3. So your record is 37-29. I am one ahead of you at 38-28. So we go into week 12. We got some really good games. Got some ranked games this week. So I'm pretty excited about our picks. Are you ready to roll?
So yeah, I left my notes at the office. So just
okay.
You if you can drive it, I will give you my picks. Is that okay?
I can drive it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's start with let's talk about the battle for the Bible. Baylor is being visited by Purple Baylor, TCU, who's ranked number 4th in the current ranking. So the battle for the Bible, Kirby, who do you got? TCU at Baylor.
Yeah, so I would say that TCU is now starting to understand what it's like to have a bullseye on your back every time. They responded well last week for that. So I am going to keep rolling with
All
TCU
right.
on that one.
I am also going with Sonny Dykes' Purple Baylor to roll into Waco and beat the Baptists. All right, Kirby. USC ranked number 7 versus UCLA ranked 16th. The Battle of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun game. I don't usually roll with the Pac-12, but it's interesting because if USC loses, the Pac-12 is kind of out of the conversation. Right. And because of that, and because I think Lincoln
Riley.
Thank you. Whatever his name is, I think he's a hell of a football coach. So I'm going USC on that one.
Yeah, this is a tough one to pick, but USC is great on the road, so I am going to take USC to beat UCLA as well. All right,
At
Kirby,
home.
the number 10th ranked Utah Utes versus the Oregon Ducks, who are ranked number 12th in Oregon. Utah at Oregon. Who do you got? Who do you got?
Yeah, so it's funny. I saw the first week when Georgia just handed it to Oregon, and I've struggled to get that taste out of my
Yeah,
mouth. But then I've seen them play,
yeah.
and I think Bo Nix is a super interesting story. I'm going to Oregon on this one.
Okay, I am. Both teams great, and again,
Yeah,
I
I
don't pay
agree.
attention to shitty Pac-12 football as a general rule. Pretty much the football night's over at about 9:30, 10 o'clock in my time. But I tell you what, Utah is really plays people tough when they're on the road. So we're going to go Utah Utes there. You picked the Oregon Ducks.
Yep.
All right. Let's head to the pros. We've got some interesting grudge matches here. I don't know why I called them grudge matches, but let's roll with it.
Yeah.
We've got the Green Bay Packers hosting the Tennessee Titans. The former Houston Oilers roll into Green Bay, Wisconsin this week after Green Bay beat my Dallas Cowboys. Who you got, Kirby?
Yeah. So this one actually was tougher than I thought because I think earlier in the year I definitely would have taken the Titans. Um, I find that sometimes wins like that Green Bay got last week sometimes will bounce back, especially with a good
Yeah.
quarterback.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't know. I think I'm rolling with Tennessee on this one.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes that type of a win where everybody predicted you'd lose will cause you to kind of rebound. I think that was Green Bay Super Bowl last week, playing their
Yeah,
former head coach and all that. And the other thing is, I think people forget how tough Tennessee plays people when they're on the road. So I think I'm going to also go with the Tennessee Titans here. All right, Kirby, a great AFC East matchup here. The New York Football Jets, pretty good this year, versus the New England Patriots. Not very good this year in New England. Who do you got?
yeah, and I think the last time we picked this game, I picked the Jets, and they got rolled by the Patriots. This one's a tough one for me. I think I'm going Patriots on this one. Just
Okay.
because they're at home. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think the New York Jets are trying to find an identity, right? And I think actually the Patriots are too, figuring out who they are. But I think Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Jets, he knows how to motivate a team to play on the road. They're going to be really tough because they're going into New England. I'm going to have to go with the New York Football Jets. Final game,
I had a
Kirby.
feeling.
Yeah, final game, Kirby. The Minnesota Vikings, the Kirk Cousins Minnesota Vikings, hosting the Dallas Cowboys in Minneapolis. Who do you got?
What's the Cowboys record at this point? Do you know off the top of your head?
Six and three.
6-3.
And I think Minnesota 7-2.
Yeah, gosh. So here's my rule when it comes to the NFL is I find that two good teams play. The team that really needs the win the most is the one I tend to find wins the most. The Vikings are a very solid football team. They've won all these
Yeah.
one-score games.
Yeah.
But I think I'm taking the Cowboys in this one.
Okay. Yeah. The Vikings, if you didn't watch that Bills Vikings game last week, too bad. That was a game for the ages. They find a way to win. Every time I think they're done, they find a way to win. They're like a Terminator from Terminator 2. You just can't get rid of them. But I think, again, Dallas's back's against the wall coming in and losing that game in Green Bay after the bye week. And I think we all know how tough Dallas is when they are on the road. So I am going to pick the Dallas Football Cowboys to roll into Minnesota and beat the Purple People Eaters. And I think it's going to be a hard game. I think it's going to be a difficult game. But I think the Cowboys are going to win. But I'll tell you what's not difficult, Kirby, and that's our good pals at Shepenko, who have recently updated their website. That's right. They've made it easier than ever to use their virtual tool. They've added an accurate shipping estimator, taking guesswork out of delivery dates, and they've increased the transparency with their inventory tracker, so you know what's in stock, and you can have all this information to really use that as a tool to communicate with your clients, and it puts you in a position of being not just a guy who gets things, a trusted expert who provides marketing promotional items that really will move a target audience to action. So you should really head over to the Shepenko website, brand new, same address, Shepenko.com, good people. They're making it easy as possible to do business with. You make it easy for you to communicate with your clients. So you're not going to be sorry you did. Kirby, I have to thank you for dual locations today. And I guess we did one. Did we technically do 1.5 podcasts today?
Yeah, 1 and a 5th, I think. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, have a safe trip to Colorado, and we'll talk to you next week.